And whenever we discuss China, a comparison with India invariably follows. They are the two largest countries in the world with big markets, growing economies, a huge workforce and strong militaries. Both are nearly 7 decades old, but the gap between the two is huge. Our next report compares and contrasts the two very different growth engines of the world.
India and China, the two giants of Asia. For these two countries, their strength is truly in the numbers. China has a population of a little more than 138 crores. India is close behind with nearly 134 crore people. But according to a projection by the United Nations, India's population will surpass China's by the year 2027. The large population means that both countries are among the biggest markets in the world. But a closer look at the demographics presents a different picture. In China, the population of the youth stands at 18%, while in India, 27% of the population is below the age of 15. This means China has an aging population. To remedy that, Beijing ended birth limits in the year 2018. Couples are being encouraged to have more babies. For now, the aging population hasn't held back China's economic growth. The value of its economy stood at $14 trillion in the year 2018. India is almost at $3 trillion. For comparison's sake, China stood at the second place. India was ranked 7th. America still has the world's largest economy. Its value stood at $20.4 trillion. These are challenging times for the global economy, and both India and China are experiencing a slowdown of their own. China's GDP growth stood at 6.2% at the end of June this year. Growth in India dropped to 5% in the same period. But despite the slowdown, both countries remain among the fastest growing economies in the world. As India and China grow steadily, they're also spending aggressively on upgrading their defense systems. In 2019, China's defense budget stood at a little more than $177 billion. In India, almost $62 billion were kept aside for defense. High spending on defense by both countries is justified. India and China have the biggest armed forces in the world. China's People's Liberation Army has more than 26 lakh military personnel. Nearly 22 lakh are active personnel. And 5,10,000 are part of the reserves. In air power, the PLA has more than 3,000 aircraft. On the land, they have more than 13,000 tanks. And in the sea, 714 naval assets guard China's interests. India is not too far behind. It has more than 34 lakh military personnel, out of which more than 13 lakh are active. 21 lakh people are part of the reserve force. The Indian Air Force has more than 2,000 aircraft. The Indian Army, among other defense equipment and arms, has more than 4,000 combat tanks. And the Indian Navy has 295 naval assets. Experts say that most of the defense equipment in India and China needs major upgradations. Both countries are among the biggest defense spenders in the world. India and China spend millions every year on defense-related purchases. Bureau Report, Wion, World is One.